Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer! Zola! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it! And here's Limpar, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal are in front.
Arsenal confronted with a harsh reality that we've only known for a couple of decades. The refs are terrible. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name's Elliot Smith, Black Man Twitter, Yankee Gunner. It is the absolute challenge of a lifetime to talk football and not get roped into refereeing debates and tedious decisions over VAR and tedious decisions over who got what right and conspiracy theories. But a video's been going around on Twitter lately of the time Robin van Persie got sent off against Barcelona for kicking a football a tenth of a second after the whistle. And there are certain moments, a moment like that feels so harsh and so unfair that you can't help but focus on it. And I think for most of us as Arsenal fans this week, we are experiencing a bit of that sorrow, but also that indignant rage of feeling something was taken from us. Whether it was really taken from us in the extreme way that maybe that particular incident was, well, that'll be a debate for this podcast, in fact, and for a long time to go. But I think we will also want to make sure that we focus on the positives of the loss to Wolves, because in my view, it was still a step in the right direction, a continuation of the progress we are making as a team, as we absolutely ripped them apart in the first half, and I was thrilled to see it. It's just unfortunate what happened. And so we'll try to parse a complicated game today. And here to do the parsing with me is Chief Parser, Paul. You can find him on Twitter at Posnin in my pants. Hello, Pos.
Parsnip in my pants. Woohoo!
Really? Is that like for aroma or for health
all the
and
root
well-being?
vegetables are in there. You're probably wondering what that bulge was.
I mean, this is not television. This is a podcast. So I was not wondering, but now I am thinking about it, and I am quite disgusted. Also parsing things with me today. You might find him parsing somewhat parsimoniously at times. I don't know what that means. His name is Tim. You can find him on Twitter at Soberto. Hello, Tim.
Hello there. I know root vegetables that I'm aware of in my undergarments at the moment.
That is lovely. You know what's funny is we're actually transitioning the Manscaped advertising to another product that could help you if you had root vegetables in your underpants for a while. You may be confused as to how that's the case. You'll find out later, I assure you. And here to parse with me is Clive. You can find him on Twitter at ClivePAFC. You can also find him on the Patreon, where we recently parsed the first half of Arsenal Wolves. We rewatched it and parsed it thoroughly. Did you enjoy the parsing, and are you ready to parse again, my friend?
Hello. Yep, I'm this game still hurting me, right? I'm sure it's hurting you. I'm not there yet. No paracetamols are getting rid of this headache. So, yeah, look forward to it.
Lucky for me, I live in America, so I don't know what paracetamol is. I just take Tylenol, but I suspect they may be the same thing. So now that I've said the word parse so many times that it doesn't make any sense, let's dive in. And we're going to try to add a little structure to the podcast. A lot of people have said that they like the instant reaction pods because of their sort of structured approach. We have headlines, stock rising, stock falling. We're going to try to add some of that into our podcasts, although we will still hopefully have the spontaneous chat that you hopefully have enjoyed for a long time. But today we'll try a little something different, see how it goes. The first thing we want to do is just move through the moments of the game, and talk about some of the moments that really struck us. And my hope is that the moments we will latch onto, because we're going to save the big moment, the critical moment, for our feature discussion today. But I hope most of them will come from the first half. So we will find out. And Paul, I will start with you. There were a number of things in this game. I mean, right from the start, opening whistle, just moments later, there's a Saka chance. So is there a particular moment, maybe during our better play, our period in the first half, that sticks out to you as one that was really important and really memorable?
So, yeah, there's one around 39 minutes that struck me. Why that one as opposed to all the other great chances? I don't think it was a better chance than the others. What I particularly liked about it, and I have to remind myself as it plays out, but it's from a corner kick for Wolves, and we play the ball up the pitch, and right from the get-go, what strikes me is that Pépé, now getting comfortable and confident and just being one more moving part in this dynamic setup, has dropped into, if you like, the 10 spot, but kind of around the center circle. as we play up the pitch. Smith Rowe is on the left wing. This is the one that ends up with Smith Rowe putting in the cross into the 6-yard box that nobody gambles on. Saka maybe could have gone for it. But it goes up one side of the pitch with Pépé in the middle and Smith Rowe on the left wing. Saka on the right wing, Black in the middle. And there's a couple of things I like about it. I can't tell if we're doing the 5 players in 5 slots because it's dynamic, it's loose, it's free moving. Xhaka and Partey are actually on the opposite sides you'd expect, with Partey on the left, Xhaka on the right. They both play a significant role in moving the ball back over to the left when it goes up to the right. But mostly I liked how far Smith Rowe was away from where I expected to see him, but more so Pépé, as he has found first his defined role on the right or left to be effective. In this game, he played on the left. But in this game, he dropped into the middle. He had chances to swap back and get back on the left and get Smith Rowe into his more conventional position. And if you like, I liked the jazz aspect to it, of the fact that it wasn't, people weren't nailed into spots and slots, even if that's what they were really doing. And Pépé and Smith Rowe were contributing in having swapped around comfortably to give them different. We didn't need to swap around positions because we were battering them basically, and yet there's kind of a freedom and expression coming along in this. And I don't know why that was the opportunity of all the great ones we had in the first half that spoke to me, but I'm thinking, okay, now we begin to develop our sea legs with this, and we're tweaking and playing with it and like really kind of jazz improvising it within the structure and within the boundaries. And I just had this moment where I'm thinking, holy shit, this is really working. This is what we really wanted to see in terms of it. It's one thing to have a good goal or a good possession of play. It's another to see the team expressing itself within a structure, that combination of structure and improvisation that makes it very difficult to play against for the opposition.
Yeah, and I think the way I would maybe look at it, Paul, is that it was also a balance between building play effectively, from possession, and then using transition effectively as well. I thought this was a game where we did good things in possession, where we built from back to front and created chances, pushed them back. And then there were also opportunities for us to transition, whether it was from deeper ball recoveries or counter-pressing, which I thought we did well. It is notable to me that I think Arteta has started to mix in some counter-pressing, some ability to win the ball back higher up the pitch. And Clive and I were discussing this when we did the rewatch. And I think it was even noticeable down to 10 and then 9 men. But, as a team, I think we made it too easy for the opposition this season when we weren't playing well to just carry the ball into our defensive third. And then we'd try to win it back there and maybe counterattack at pace, play direct, fine, play our way around them. We are winning the ball back now in positions higher up the pitch, allowing us to, I think, create more varied attacks and more effective attacks because the moves don't start, so close to our own goal and force us to work our way all the way up the pitch. And I really like seeing that. Tim, I don't know if that's something that you have observed as well. Our ability to build attacks from positions that aren't just, starting with Leno passing it to his own player in his own box and having to play all the way up the pitch. And we will certainly get to a moment in the game where Leno did play out long and what happened there. Comments that precede unfortunate events. But do you have a moment maybe in the first half in particular that stands out to you in terms of, the way we were really breaking them down?
So not one particular moment, but I want to go over, I guess, a moment that happened a few times.
Yeah, sure.
I think your observation is absolutely correct, that our defensive improvement is not really down to our defence. And there's been lots of changeover in that back four, so it's not like built on a solid defensive partnership per se. I think you're exactly right. What's happened? We've gone from 3 at the back to 3 in midfield, and now we just win the ball back higher. I think you're exactly right with that. And not only does that take the pressure off our defence, as you say, that enables us to start attacks and makes us a bit more varied. But to your point about the more varied way that we build play now, that comes on nicely to what I wanted to talk about, which was Thomas Partey's passing. Talking about the counter press, and obviously he can be a big part of that. He can go and close people down, albeit I don't think that's largely what he's doing. I think that's like Smith Rowe, and we're seeing Pépé doing it, as we saw it with the first goal. Lacazette does it, but you can see that Smith Rowe is the trigger for the press, not Lacazette, and that's really, really interesting to me, because that's almost like we're telling Lacazette, okay, obviously he's not pressing at all, but do you know what I mean? It's like if we lose if Smith Rowe wins it back, then he's immediately got Lacazette there, so that there's like, it's almost like thinking two moves ahead. But what I wanted to talk about was really Thomas Partey, and as you said, Elliot, it's nice when you can go from goalkeeper to centre forward and score a goal. Those goals are lovely, and that is a good thing to do as well, to draw out the opposition press, etc., etc. But we all know everyone got wise to it, and they just didn't press us anymore. They just let us pass it around our own defensive third, and it kind of stopped working. And even when it works, I mean, how often can you realistically score a goal like that? Once every few games, that's not enough. And what Partey was doing in this game, one of the things I was most intrigued about when I read, I think it was Phil Costa wrote a profile of him on Arsblog when we signed him, and he talked about that outward ball he has to the right wing, and he talked about how he used to clip the ball to Trippier out on the Atletico right, and this was at a time when Arsenal's play was so slanted to the left that like the pitch might as well have been on stilts. And Pépé and Bellerin on the right weren't getting an awful lot of action, and probably the same for Willian. And so I was really interested in the idea that, okay, this guy can spread play to the right, and he likes that pass. And what we saw in this game time and time again, and I don't know if it's just because they thought that the Wolves left back was weak, but he just kept planting that ball in behind the Wolves left back for Saka and Bellerin to run onto again and again and again. And he's just got that lovely cross-field pass, and he can do it in both directions as well. He can hit the left as well. And that just varies the point of attack. And also, because it's a longer pass, it gets the ball there quicker. There's a guy called Charles Hughes who kind of poisoned English coaching throughout the 70s and 80s, because he had this he wrote a coaching manual for the FA, and his whole principle was get the ball up the pitch in as few passes as possible, which is actually not a bad principle at all. It's just it was interpreted as get the goalkeeper to welly it out of his hands up to the striker for a flick on, but actually getting the ball up the pitch in as few passes as possible is actually a good thing to do, particularly when there's precision behind it. And just Partey like hitting those, they're not David Luiz passes, they're just like 30-40 yards, but just spreading them out to the wings, just and particularly because that's kind of the way we attack anyway. It's just been so useful, and he's so press resistant, and he can take the ball on the half turn and just whip that ball out in half a second. So in the space of a second, he's got the ball half turned, maybe edge of the Arsenal centre circle in his own half, and 2 seconds later it's at the edge of the opponent's box at the feet of an Arsenal winger or fullback, and that is really, really valuable. And just to finish on Paul's point about Pépé, I looked at Pepe's heat maps from the last 3 games compared to games where I thought he'd played terribly, and guess what? All his heat maps in the games where he played terribly, massive blob out on the touchline. Look at his heat maps for the last 3 games. They are all over the place, and there's lots of central action. And I think that's partly the confidence of the player, but the fact that that ball's going out quickly, if it goes to the fullback, that means the forward can move inside. And hey presto, what have you got? You've got Pépé and Saka, our 2 wingers. Their end product is going up as a result. And why is that? It's not because they're out on the touchline with the ball boys spanking shots into the nets, because they're in the area, and they both effectively scored in this game. It's just unfortunate that Lacazette was offside for Saka's, and I think it's just really varying things up so nicely for us, and it was our chief weapon in that first half.
Yeah, and I mean, Saka could have had a few goals. Obviously, I mean, he's unlucky with that early chance. He has the one that's offside as well. Pépé had one that hit.
Our two chief weapons.
Our three. No one expects a Spanish Inquisition. Clive, and by the way, I watched Brighton beat Liverpool, and I watched Brighton beat, was it Spurs just before that, right? Sometimes I think these really good coaches, this is going to oversimplify it. I honestly sometimes think their instruction is, when you receive the ball, look forward and pass it forward. You notice it with Brighton so much. Like, they don't play like one of these small teams, like when they recover the ball, the first thing they do is look to go back, get it to the defender, and then just boot it up the pitch. I mean, maybe at the very end when they're trying to see the game out. But it's a difference that I've noticed in us too now. We get the ball, we move it forward. Thomas Partey is the chief reason for that. I also think Smith Rowe popping up between the lines and creating another option there helps us with that. I do think the problem with the back three, it was solid and it helped us possess the ball, but it didn't make it easy to progress the ball unless you were willing to just spin it up the wing to the fullback. And we don't have to do that anymore. We have more progressive passing options and we have a better progressive passing central midfielder in Partey. Clive, I mean, we saw so much of this. There's that one moment, I think it's in the first half. Of course, it has to be in the first half, where I guess, is it the one where Smith Rowe slides it across the corridor of uncertainty, or is it the one where he pulls it back? But it starts with Thomas Partey getting the ball from Hector Bellerin deep, and he's got a defender on him. And he draws the defender in and dribbles past him and then slides it over to Xhaka, who plays it up the wing, and away we go. I think it's to Pépé, and away we go. That's what Partey does. He just gives us that ability to push the ball forward. And sometimes the way he does it is by letting the defender get drawn in and going past him. And once you do that, you immediately create a numerical advantage. And so I think he did that a lot in the first half. Is there a moment, maybe related to his buildup or otherwise I keep saying from the first half. We can get to the second half in a bit, and it obviously is part of the game, but feels like it's part of a different game. But is there one that you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, I suppose when you go into games, obviously we had a tough game against Man United, and we go into this game, and I'm nervous like everybody is, right? And then that first chance comes, and the way it was constructed, we just spoke about, but the ferocity of the shot, and I just suddenly started to believe in the team immediately. And I think the thing I take away from the moment for me in this game is, I think the team was starting to believe that they are really good.
I agree.
And they attacked this game massively and said, we're winning. And there was a time way back when we played games like this all the time. We smashed people first 15 minutes. It was over. He might as well have gone home, and we attacked that game like a team that was finding itself, which makes what happened even more harder to bear, I think that's why some of the players were so disappointed, because they knew they didn't just lose 1 point, it was 3 points, right? So the belief being caused by good players working in a collective, cohesive way. There's a couple of players which we've spoken about that I think are just transformational. And there are other players that are following their lead, particularly Granit Xhaka, for example. And it's stuff that we've spoken about many times, our sideward passing, the horseshoe passing, the lack of filling up certain zones. But when Partey's come in, he's just played football forward. Yep. When Smith Rowe and Martinelli came in, they just played to the next shirt forward. They're not afraid to turn around. And I just think we've seen the benefits of that, and we just continued it. So other players are holding people to account when they're passing backwards, because they realise that's not what happens. And modern coaching today is all about, positional play and covering your zones. And what you need to do is move the ball quickly into those zones, no matter where they are. Whether they're the furthest player away, it's always a good thing. And then what happens then, you have to get around it. You have to get around that guy quicker than they get back. You create your superiorities and you're in. What are we doing wide areas? We get there quickly, we get around it, rat-a-tat, in. What do Man City do? Move it, get into wide areas, third man run, in. Right, superiorities, couple of distraction runs, in. Right? It's all about moving it to zones. Of course, you have to have players who can move it. And we've had players historically, recently, particularly in centre midfield, that have taken a simplistic option, which is to pass back to Holding or pass back to Luiz. And of course, everyone can sit and wait for Luiz to loft it, and they can back off, no pressure on the ball, you drop off, clear it, sweep it up. When Partey gets it, when Xhaka gets it now, it's really fast. Now we're receiving the ball with separation, and then we can start to connect. And it's just, for me, belief was really high, and I really hope we carry that belief into the game of the weekend against Villa, and make sure this game does not cost us more than just 3 points. That's really important.
I joked on the rewatch, but I mean it. I hope that Arteta buys the team a round of drinks and sits them down and has them watch this first half so that they remember that before what happened, they were playing at the absolute peak of their powers. I mean, this for me was the game, ironically, where I was watching and I was like, you know what? We're just good now. This isn't, hey, we beat up on a few bad teams. Because if you think about some of these games in this run against Brighton, I think we had, no shots at halftime. Newcastle in the Cup, no shots at halftime. There were games where we put in partial performances or kind of got it done. The United game.
We'd play 10 minutes and be excited about it against Sheffield United, and then we'd almost play a full half, and etc.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Paul. And I think that this was a game where I watched it. I was just like, this is just a good team that knows how it wants to play now and gets it. And I will say, I mean, Paul, maybe just sometimes the players you have and a system you choose make sense to players more than another system. It never felt to me like that back three, that sort of hybrid back three with the 5 lanes of attack. It never felt like the players really looked natural in it. And now it feels a lot more natural. Now, some of that is I think you have a Thomas Partey who can be the progressive passing part of the double pivot, and it's made Xhaka look a lot better by association and by performance. Let's not take anything away from him. And, you have a player between the lines in Smith Rowe. So I think they'll look a lot more comfortable. One thing I was noticing in this first half in particular, Smith Rowe popping up more in the left half space. And, how that unlocked access to Pépé and also sort of gave Pépé some room to operate. So, is that, maybe now the next evolution for Smith Rowe that Arteta's giving him a little more freedom? Because the irony is he popped up in the left half space. Bellerin would tuck in, and we hit the ball over the top to Saka a few times. He was getting him behind off the shoulder of their defender. I wonder if maybe Arteta spotted something in the way they play that they wanted to target that. But we've not seen Smith Rowe play in that zone as much since he's come into the team. So that was definitely a difference.
Yeah, so it's funny you went there because I was just actually going back to that and having a look at Smith Rowe in the first half because I'm thinking, man, he's really hard, kind of plowing that side of the pitch, linking up with Pépé. And you might be right, it might have been direction, or it may just have been that's where they felt the opportunity between him and Pépé because they were having a lot of joy with it. I found it extremely encouraging that's where he spent his time, because you don't go to that side if you're not finding the opportunities and the connections. And I have the first half playing on in the background as we're chatting, and you can just see that they're finding each other, Pépé and Smith Rowe. It's not the only time they swap positions, but they're creating triangles, whoever's passing to them. Laka, the first couple of games with Smith Rowe, I picture it with Laka, Saka, and ESR over on the right-hand side. And this is more Laka, ESR, and Pépé knocking it around on the left-hand side. And I don't think it's one or the other. It's just in the first half, that's where they were finding it. That's where they were finding those connections, which I think is, it can't be any better.
Yeah.
I think Smith Rowe, what I liked about Smith and Rowe the last few games is I don't think
both
he'd
of them,
come away.
Smith and Rowe, or just one of them?
Yeah. All 3 weapons. Oh no, sorry. Is that he hasn't been the headliner. He didn't have the moment that you think you'll remember in 10 games time. Oh, the Smith Rowe games included these 2, but he's just really good, really important, doing everything from the pressing to being in the right spots, being the glue, the paste, whatever, connecting these guys, and it just. We discussed it, or we used the term, maybe it's not the player, it's the position, but it's both. He's really, really, really good at this. Even when he doesn't have a breakout game, it's a very, very good game. And I think he's better than most teams' number 10.
And it's interesting because it was a more peripheral performance. But again, sometimes the job isn't just to get on the ball and create assists. There's other things happening there. And Tim, before I come to you, Clive, you typed something into the chat that I'd love you to just add to the conversation because I think it's a really good point. When I watch us play, I see one layer less of football than you do. So all I see is what we're doing. What you see that I'm missing, and I love that you see it because it helps me see it, is what we are doing to also counter them. And that use of Smith Rowe may have been designed by design, not just in terms of how we build, but to deny service to Traore, who was fairly limited, I felt, in the first half, other than when Thomas Partey quite cynically and fantastically kicked the crap out of him to stop a counterattack. So do you think that may have been part of it? That it was a counter to their strength?
Yeah, so you look at Semedo and you look at Traore, and if you think to yourself, if I let them go massively, they're going to cause us problems. They're quite sharp. They're really quick and attacking. So by just loading Smith Rowe on that side, and this is why, and also trying to keep Cedric high, you're really trying to free Pépé a little bit. One of Pépé and Smith Rowe, and then you're rolling Xhaka around into left back, which might look a bit high risk. Actually, it's risk versus reward, right? You're forcing them, and every time they do get a bit of broken play, you can get around them, bang, rat-a-tat around their ankles, and stop him getting running. And Cedric had a couple of early good challenges against him, and we fouled him, and we need to because he's a massive breakaway weapon. So sometimes we load on that side, whereas on the right-hand side, the Partey-Saka link against Kilman, when they've got problems in the left wing-back situation, they've had an injury, etc. Kilman looks more of a centre-back to me, so you don't want to have people around Saka on that. I think we messed up later in the game. You don't want people, you want him one-on-one isolated, right? So, and he ran his legs off, didn't he, early on in particular? Couldn't get near him, right? So yeah, I think sometimes when I watch a game from scouting or something like that for the non-league team, I watch the opposition a lot. And sometimes you have to do that. And we all watch our own team. And sometimes we watch the opposition and see how they make you feel. That's a key thing. And then try to think how we can stop them. So when you're watching these teams, look at the feeling that they give you, the fear they give you, then look at where our players positioned, and it's normally to counteract their strengths.
And it's brilliant because it also makes me realize, there was a lot of chatter about, are they targeting Bellerin because Podence had a lot of the ball. But if you've shut down their right-hand side by bringing Smith Rowe over there, right, and letting Cedric and Pépé and Smith Rowe kind of take Traore out of the attack a little bit, Podence is what's left, and they hit that side a little bit more. And I thought Bellerin did okay with it. But it also explains maybe why they did more of their attacking down that side, because we allowed that to be their avenue of attack a little more than the other side.
Can I add a little bit just on the touches? Because I was just looking at on who scored in terms of touches. And if you look at the first 25 minutes, basically all Smith Rowe's touches are along the left-hand side. And then he gets a couple on the right-hand side, I think, from the fact that he's the second man on the two-man corners over with Saka. But basically, for the first 25 minutes, it's all down the left-hand side.
Interesting. Well, so Tim, look, at this point, I think before we get to the main talking point, which is going to be what destroyed the game and what we think of that, and maybe who's to blame for it, other than the ref and also the ref, I think we should just quickly kind of touch on this goal that was scored because it's pretty special. I think what's going to be lost in a series of beautiful dribbles, great balance, and a phenomenal finish with a weaker foot is the ball recovery. That to me is just as important. And I think the way I look at Pépé, he is a moment's player for sure. I don't think anybody ever doubted that he had the ability to do the occasional brilliant thing. The question is, can he fit into a team concept when he needs to, and then have those moments of individualistic flair when it suits him? And I thought this game was a really nice balance of that. And the goal itself is a balance of that, in that he recovers the ball before producing this scintillating finish. So is that sort of the quintessential well-rounded moment for Pépé, the aha moment, the sign of him sort of graduating from individualistic player to player who can kind of do both?
Yeah, absolutely. He had 7 ball recoveries against Southampton, 5 against Man United. So you can see that's the area he's improving. His I wrote about him today, in fact, and I was looking at the last 3 games, and I was looking back and thinking, right, when did I think Pépé played really crap? And actually, this probably won't surprise you. His shot metrics don't really change, and like chance creation and all of that. And I know we talk about this quite a lot. Like I went back and thought, when did I think Pépé was absolutely rubbish? Oh, look, he had the same number of shots in that game as he did in like, well, not in this game, because he only had 2 ball recoveries in this game, right? For example, and had it been 11v11, like both of those ball recoveries were in the first half. Had the game been 11v11, I think would have seen more in the second half. But it is those fundamentals. What he does in the 18-yard area, I don't think has changed at all. I think the difference is yes, he is doing the fundamentals a bit more in terms of winning the ball back. I think B, most importantly, we're getting him into those areas a lot more now. And like I said earlier, his heat map for this game, slightly less for this game because of the way the second half changed, but for United and for Southampton, it's all over the place. And lots of it is like around the edge of the area and in the area, and it just seems like, Arteta said this about Aubameyang, right? When Aubameyang went through his goal scoring drought, he said we've got to put him in positions a bit more where he can be dangerous, and it just seems like they've analogued that to Pépé. Yeah, almost treated him like Aubameyang and just said, okay, let's just get this guy in the fucking penalty area as often as we can, and let's get him like swinging that foot, getting shots off, because we all know he's good at shooting. We all know he's got like he's a very good finisher. Again, as Paul said many times, if it doesn't go in, it's usually close. There are a couple against Man U that are just past the post. And I said after Man U, just keep doing that. Just keep taking those shots and enough of them will go in. And actually, his goal contribution numbers are solid throughout his time at Arsenal. But none of us are stupid. No matter how you absorb football, whether you do it through vibes, data, a mixture of the two, whether you get drunk and go and watch it in the stand or get drunk and watch it on TV, or whether you like to really analyze it, there's one thing, like, you can see conviction, right? It's an intangible, but it's tangible. You can see when someone's in the mood and when they're convincing and when they're not. And we can all see that Pépé looks more convincing, and he stopped doing this stuff where it's like, yeah, he had 3 shots today, but he kept letting the ball roll under his studs, and he kept tripping over the ball. And he kept like just daydreaming. And the phrase I used in the article I wrote, sorry to re-up this, but I thought it was good, so I'm going to say it again. Like, sometimes he looks like a man who's gone to a rap battle with like a triangle and a harmonica, and it's just like what are you doing, man? Like, what? Like, nothing he was doing before was in sync with his teammates. But in the last, like, inside the area, he's always been good inside the area. Nothing there has changed. But he just seems a bit more in sync with his teammates. And whether that's just down to the team being a bit better, attacking a bit more, the fact that Smith Rowe's there now, there's a bit of a wall pass, so you don't have to like try and dribble your way out of cul-de-sacs all the time. Whether it's Partey arcing those passes out, I'm sure it's a bit of both of those. Whether he's had like a bit of a come to Jesus moment, a bit of soul searching and gone, nope, I've got to make this work. I suspect it's a little bit of all of those things, but I completely agree that the goal's fantastic, and the way he finishes it is not surprising. Even on his right foot, he scored an absolute banger against Dundalk with his right foot. We know he can do that. We've seen it. It's the ball recovery that's where it can, and that's where the chance is created, and it's from a very similar area as well to the goal he scores against Southampton. It's that inside forward area, and I think, I don't know whether it's just taken a long time to work this out or whether it's just taken a long time to get the players around him that can help. But we're just getting him into those inside forward positions a bit more, and I do think Smith Rowe helps, not just by being like that wall pass number 10, but Smith Rowe is really good at filling in on the flanks when either Saka or Pépé moves in, and they're both moving in because they're both scoring goals at the moment. And like I said, nobody's scoring goals from the touchline at the moment. They're scoring goals because they're in the area, and I do think some of that as well is because Smith Rowe is really good at seeing where his teammates are and filling spaces, and that's essentially what Smith Rowe has done. I'm almost not indifferent, obviously, but I am almost like sanguine about the goals and assists from Smith Rowe. For me, what he's doing is he's just recognizing where gaps are. He's recognizing where a teammate's in trouble and needs a pass. He's recognizing where someone's made a run and it needs a filler, and it's just smoothed things out. And the challenge now for Pépé and Smith Rowe and Saka to a degree is we've only been playing like this for a month, so there's more data now. And with every game that goes past, the next manager has a bit more data on how to stop us from playing. And we've already seen it with the 3-4-3. It worked until it didn't. So the next challenge for these players is Dean Smith at Villa. He will be showing his players all week clips of Pépé. He'll be saying, stop him getting there, stop him getting in that inside forward position. And that's the challenge now, is that people are going to be more alive to him than ever. And he has to keep raising that bar. And the way he does that is by continuing to do the fundamentals.
You know, the good thing about showing them film of Pépé and saying you have to stop what he's going to do is that even Pépé doesn't know what he's going to do. So it's hard to stop. You know, what's interesting, Tim, too, is I think there's a level up that this can go to, because Pépé hasn't really had a chance to play with Tierney since he's been on the left, you know? Tierney's mostly been out during that period. Have they played together at all since Pépé shifted left? Or does it all come with Tierney being out? I can't...
Not in this spell. It might have happened because Pépé has drifted over to the left a few times, so it might have happened. But you're right, because Tierney's so good at filling the wide spot in that area that absolutely opens things up for an inside forward. That's exactly how we play with Aubameyang. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's going to lead to a later conversation in this pod about what Arteta does from here, because I think, Lacazette is a performance we can analyze. Both Smith Rowe and Lacazette were a little more peripheral in this game. Smith Rowe, I think, influenced it a bit more, and I think it was telling that Lacazette came off when we went down to 10 men after halftime because, and Pépé did stay on, because that's definitely not a move that Arteta would have made, just a few weeks or months ago. I thought it was a shame when Pépé did ultimately come off, actually. But, Paul, you wanted to add on Pépé quickly?
Yeah, Tim in many ways covered all of this, but I'd reframe what I think is different now with Pépé. It's about getting him into better positions, about connectivity. It's about getting him into the box, but it's really about the chaos side of it, the movement, the way we're playing around him. He beat two players on the way to the goal, but he beat them one by one. They weren't a set defense waiting for him, which is what he's faced for this whole season. Yeah. Two players and two more players behind it. We moved it from side to side. We'd attacked with Saka down one side, swung it up the other side. Him and Smith Rowe were interchanging. Lacazette pops one to Pépé to Smith Rowe for the cross, for the 6-yard box cross. They're just moving it around all the time, so that it's not a set defense. You see it in basketball all the time. I don't really have much of a basketball eye, but there's a whole difference between the defense is set and it's all stirred up, and it has that extra few yards of chaos in terms of positions. And he's just, if he only has one or two guys to beat on his way into the box, he'll tear them a new one. The problem with him before was he'd try and do it with four guys waiting for him, because we weren't doing anything anywhere else across their back line. So, Tim touched on all the reasons, but I kind of look at it from the other side, saying, do they look like a defence in chaos? And Wolves are a very organised team, so I think it augurs well for what we're doing. It's beyond Pépé, and it's the context in which he's being dropped in, and of course having Smith Rowe to ping balls with. But
and before we get to the part of the conversation we're going to dread, which is the part of the game we dread, Clive, I just want to let you weigh in on Pépé really quickly as well, because I think you've been talking about this a lot, and it is noticeable to me under Arteta, it just seemed so obvious that the wide forwards were too wide, that too often we were looking at an Aubameyang serving in crosses from the touchline, or Pépé trying to beat two guys out on the touchline with a fullback inside him. And both Saka and Pépé seem to have so much more access to the box now. I think it's the change in formation, and I think it's the presence of the guy between the lines. And, it has changed. Not just for Saka, who's completely come alive, but for Pépé, it's changed his fortunes as well. So, the shift to the left is going to get a lot of the focus, but I think also being able to operate in tighter spaces closer to the box is a big part of it as well.
Yeah, so let's talk formation first, right? So I know you got your thing against back three, but Man City are basically playing the 3-3-4 at the moment.
Well, can I just say one thing about a back three? And I'll let you go. But ironically, in this game, there were times when we were building up, if you noticed, where Xhaka dropped back into the line of center backs again, and we built from a back three formation. Yeah.
Classic Cruyff video stuff too. It's all in there. It's all in there. That Xhaka dropping into the back three. That's what that Cruyff video is. He was advocating a three at the back, and you can see all of Arteta's football in it.
Yeah, lots of teams do it now. It's the trend. It's been a trend for probably a season, right? So what is interesting is what City are doing. So we've seen the 2-3-5 and the 3-2-5, but City have gone 3-3-4, and I think that's really interesting how they're using Cancelo a lot and really making their fullbacks be midfielders. And I think this is something we need to be thinking about. We had a chat earlier about this, and I think this is a development for our right back. This is a developmental area. Nothing against the player, just that we need somebody who can do more stuff on the football in that situation, right? So don't pin it to a formation. Pin it to a starting position. It's very, very simple. Starting position needs to be much more in the interior, and he needs to have something called creative freedom. And when we first got Pépé, remember I spoke about the Tifo football video at him at Lille? Mm-hmm. And they said in that video, and I've always remembered it, they said in that video, it didn't come from me, it came from them, you got to make him free. You got to make him a free running player. Don't pin him somewhere. He's got to be he's a creative finisher, basically. That's what he is. So Clive Palmer, 50s, overweight, living near Luton. If I can work that out after watching one video, why is it taking the club 18 months to recognise how to use a player? Particular player they spent £70 million on. I find it infuriating. He's always been this player, but we haven't used him properly. He's got technique you can't teach. He does things that actually other footballers are absolutely scared of. What we do, we analyse him in a construct of how we're using him. Think about how he could be used. Think about your favourite highlight moments and where they were on the pitch. Then say, we got to get him there more often. And then you can obviously see now he's got a little bit of belief from the coach. And I think with a little bit of belief from the coach and the players around him, we're seeing somebody, and I really, really, truly believe this. He's got star potential. Mm-hmm. Just the way he struts and the way he is, he's got star potential. He can carry the weight of this team.
£62 million, Pépé?
And I know it's way too much. The numbers are way too much, and that's probably another reason why we haven't really analysed him properly. The numbers are way too big, and we don't give people that price tag to patience, right? But he's got star mentality. It struck me. Remember those 2 free kicks against, was it Victoria? Mm-hmm. It wasn't just the free kicks; it was the time in the game. And forget the opponent. The goals don't move, right? So it was a time in the game, and he took that on. And I think there was always flickering there to say, you know what, we let this guy go. I wonder what he could do. But we found a way to crush him, and I think that's ridiculous. Ridiculous use of resources again. To me, he was always this player. Let's put more responsibility on him to be more free. I think the addition of Smith Rowe, as Tim said just then, if he does go, Smith Rowe feels in where he should be. I think that's allowed him the freedom to be the player he is. But you can still do that in a 3-4-3, in a box-shaped midfield. You can still do that then. You can still push people in. It's just about letting the guy off the leash, and way overdue in my opinion. He actually annoys me, actually. It actually annoys me that it's taken so long to get the benefit of this player.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing we should do also, we tend to always assume things are about the tactics or things are about the coach and things coaches are doing or the club are doing. The player has responsibility. And some of Pepe's resurgence and revitalization here could also be that he has bought into doing all the hard work, all the dirty work. And I'm not saying he didn't want to do it before, he was lazy or anything, but let's give the player some of the credit, but also some of the responsibility. It's possible that some of the reason he's thriving now is that he is starting to do more of the things that he has been asked to do. We don't know that. Again, it's purely speculation, but it's the point that
it's a two-way street.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So let's do this. We got to get to the refereeing decisions. I think, and certainly how we arrived at the refereeing decisions. I certainly think that it is a memory we'd like to just pluck out of our brain. We'd like to just clear that out of our mind. We have to get to it. But maybe if we're thinking about something that we'd like to trim away from our brain, or I think you know where this is going, shear off of our experience, that it's a perfect time to talk about other things you might want to shave away, shear away, cut away. And you can do it with the Lawnmower 3.0 from Manscaped. That's right. It's that time. We're going to talk about manscaped.com, where you are going to go and use promo code ArsenalVision and get 20% off and free shipping. Going to switch to a new product starting February 8th. So all of this Lawnmower 3.0 stuff, this is it. Last couple of days. If you want the skin-safe ceramic blade to never nick you or cut you down there, so that when you finally get some time to enjoy the companionship of your partner, they don't say, what are these marks? These make me feel uncomfortable. This is unpleasant. I quit. I'm out of here. No, instead they just find something pleasant and happy. And you know what? I'm loath to name it the V-Day, but V-Day is upon us. I'm not an observer of V-Day, as my wife knows, but V-Day does exist. It's called Valentine's Day. And if you are an observer of it, it is a gift you can give your partner, or your partner can give you if you want to give them an idea. I personally just think it's an everyday thing. Love should be expressed every day. It shouldn't just be because some greeting card company told us it should. Some little baby in a diaper with a bow and arrow shoots an arrow at you that has a heart on it, and now suddenly you have to buy gifts for your partner. It's silly. You should just shower your partner with love and affection using parts of your body that are properly maintained. And you do that with the Lawnmower 3.0. These get weirder and weirder and weirder. But you know what? If you don't buy this thing, you know what's going to happen. Razor in the shower. It's been there for 3 months. You use it. It does something terrible. Or you just don't use it because you're like, you know what? I'm not using that thing. And then it just gets to be a hirsute situation down there. You don't need it. You can do it eyebrows, sideburns, chest, of course your privates. Long battery life, waterproof, it's wet dry. The thing looks space age. It is cool as heck, and you get 20% off and free shipping when you use promo code ArsenalVision. Manscaped.com, promo code ArsenalVision. Do it not for Valentine's Day. I refuse to buy into that capitalistic nonsense. I'm going to buy into different capitalistic nonsense. Manscaped.com, promo code ArsenalVision. Clive, is that enough of that?
Oh, man. I was looking at something else. Just hurry up and get it done with.
It's over. I promise it's over. You ready to move on? All right, let's move on. Okay, Let's get to our feature section today. And our featured section today is all refs are bastards, especially Craig Pawson. Look, Bukayo Saka very well could have had a penalty. Clive and I were doing the rewatch, and Clive made the perfect point, which I will now state as though it was mine, which is simply that he doesn't get the ball and he makes contact. So if not getting the ball and making contact is a penalty later in the half, then it certainly should have been a penalty early in the half. He doesn't get the ball and he makes contact. And VAR doesn't sort it out the first time, and it doesn't sort it out the second time. So I don't know. All we want is consistency, and we didn't get it. Clive, let's do this just briefly, though. Let's talk the football part just quickly, because the refereeing part is a big conversation to have. On the football front, tell me how we arrive at this moment. So the half is about to go. Leno kicks it before his team is set. We lose the first ball. Luiz jumps for a second ball. He doesn't. I mean, what on earth have we done to create a situation where Craig Pawson can steal the game from us?
So, yeah, Leno got his ankle injury just before that, didn't he? And so he took a long kick the first time because he was almost like he was testing his ankle out. He didn't want the agility of having to move, get the ball back and build play. And so when I looked at it, I thought, great, he hasn't done his ankle because I didn't want Shitterson in the team, right? Do you know what I mean? So that was the first kick. And then
you got him anyway. Later.
And then he didn't do too bad actually. But then we got the second goal kick at just literally on 47 minutes. And he strikes into areas, so we tend to exit to Pépé because he's really good at coming off the touchline, jumping off from the side and beating fullbacks or midfielders by flicking it on. And then he follows his header and he tries to get a second ball. Right, so we didn't reach Pépé, so I think Smith Rowe gets jumped by, I'm not sure if it's Cody or somebody there. Now this is a mistake, right? So 2 minutes or seconds go before half time. What you don't do is get your fishing rod out and a centre half. You got your centre midfield in front, you can see him. There's a ball there to be won. Don't get attracted. You actually drop away. And stay tight. And so he goes fishing for the ball with William Jose. And William Jose then spins. And David Luiz didn't really spin quickly. He's sort of like, we'll be all right. And then he thought, shit, I'm in trouble here. Because they've got the player in the middle, I can't remember who it was. He's got good possession. And there's a zigzag in our back line. Fullbacks are frozen. They know that they've got a little bit of cover. Cedric's too far away. Shouldn't be. Bellerin's got a man behind him. He's thinking, do I stay with him? or do I go to the ball? Didn't do anything. Holding shits himself. He drops away. Potentially could have gone to the ball and created distraction, but didn't. There's a big hole there, and David Luiz, to his credit, he saw it and he gave it everything he's got. But really, it shouldn't have happened. We should have kept a straight line, stay in our zones, make them work to go past them. No spaces, particularly when literally it was after the 2 minutes, and the referee let the play build as we would expect. You know, so a few seconds ago, we'd expect that if it's the other way around. If he'd have blown out, it would have been a riot, right? And quite rightly. And the situation then, which I'll probably let someone else deal with, the situation then happened, and it's disappointing, right? Because we have experienced players for this not to happen. Right? That's my thing. You experienced players get hold of people at key moments, but it's an experienced player that, in my opinion,
can I ask a question on it?
Yeah,
from you, Clive?
Yeah, cool.
Like, what's the difference between, like, you'll often see a centre-back push up. Mustafi would do it a lot. Luis is very front-footed. Holding's very front-footed. They'll go up for that header and make that challenge, and you know, they'll probably win it 2 out of 3 times. What do you see as the difference between this situation where, you know, I see something that looks like this all the time, and we're fine with it. So
it's not
I'm not fine with it. I want to raise my hand and not be fine with it, but I'll explain that in a second.
It's not Luiz's fault, and I know Tim's going to know this when I speak about it because he watches some warm-ups as well. But you see the back four together, and I do these drills myself, right? So you have a back four, and you fire a ball into them, and one of the centre backs comes out, and the others cover around, right? So it's just a drill you do to get you synchronization going. So when one comes out of his hole, the others squeeze in, right? And so you communicate early. I'm going.
But the gap between the two guys is massive, isn't it?
Exactly. So Luiz is getting stick here, but mate, I'm telling you, Rob Holding looked like a post box, right? He didn't move, right? So, and the fullbacks didn't move. They just they were frozen. They just knocked off, right? So
I am telling you, if you watch that video again, though, Clive, Leno kicks it before anybody is ready. They do not realize. I don't know why he's kicked it so quickly, because they are still just walking up the pitch. So nobody's set.
I haven't really captured that, to be honest with you, mate. I haven't captured that, and I don't think that was massive because the person going for the first ball was ready for it, right? So, and it's gone over their heads. But, you know, point taken. You could easily say, why don't Leno just waste another 5 seconds? They would have been blown in the air. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, for me, it's a collective thing. Always is. Don't have to go fishing. If you do go fishing, you cover around. We did neither. Left a big hole and they ran through it.
Defending is really hard, and I think a lot of defending is context, right? It's situational awareness. So in the ill-fated Crystal Palace game where Mustafi loses Zaha and we lose top four, leading up to that, I think, is Koscielny going up for a header he has no business contesting, and all he has to do is drop off and the danger's not there. Going up and contesting those balls is not always the wrong choice. It's just the wrong choice in the moment. We know the whistle's about to blow. So I get that you want to win back possession, but like, you don't have to challenge for that. Just let them have possession. A couple passes later, the whistle blows. So I just think it's the wrong move contextually. But Tim,
or smash him, smash him in the back of the head, sure, right, and give a free kick.
Why not?
That's what you do. That's literally what you do.
Yeah. So then, Tim, let's get to the actual penalty. The first thing I want to ask you, and it's not a loaded question, just really quickly. I watched this a million times, as all of us have, and I still can't decide if David Luiz has taken the line across the back of the player with the knowledge, not the intent, but the knowledge maybe his stride hits me and we both go over or something and I get away with it, or he goes, or do you think it is purely accidental? And let's just say this. We all know that defenders sometimes will run across the stride of a player. The player will kick the defender. And you can say, oh, the player's kicked the defender. The defender knows exactly what he's doing, and it is a foul. I'm not saying that's what happened here. I'm asking you, do you think that Luiz takes the natural line and is unlucky, or has some knowledge that he's running across the stride of the player and, you know, is aware of what the ramifications that can be?
Honestly, I think it's inconclusive. I think it could be either. I think usually in most situations you can tell, right? So you remember Luiz got sent off at Stamford Bridge a year ago, where he goes for the ball because he goes through Tammy Abraham, and it, like, he is going for the ball, but I think you can tell he's thinking, I'm just going to take everything that's on offer, and if it's the man or the ball, we'll see. I don't mind. Not that I don't mind either way, but either one's good one way or another. You know, you can kind of tell that. Like I don't think he'd make that tackle like in the centre circle unless there was a breakaway on, for example. In this one, I honestly find it so difficult to tell, and the only thing that gives me pause to think that it was definitely an accident and that thought didn't even cross his mind is that he falls as well. And I think if you really want to know, you'd have to judge whether Luiz legitimately fell himself because he wasn't expecting contact from the studs of the Wolves player, or whether you just thought he was being a bit clever and thinking, oh, fuck, I've touched him here. If I go down, I make this look a bit more like a tangle of legs than the fact that I've just clipped him. But I think taking those two things together, like, you always know when you run alongside a player that you run that risk. You know you do. But and so like the extent to which he thought, well, I might just collide with him and that'll be all right, or the extent to which it's like, well, I've got no fucking choice but to run alongside him, and so I accept that risk is it's very, very difficult to determine, to be honest. But yeah, I the thing is, here's where the law is an ass in this particular respect. What else is David Luiz supposed to do? Like the law and the way it is basically says in that situation, you either have to stop or run away. And that's ludicrous. Like, because what if Willian Jose goes through 1-on-1 and Leno saves it and there's a rebound and Luiz is 20 yards back going, sorry, I'm not allowed to run anymore. Like that's absurd. That is absurd. So whether, and here's the thing, right? When referees judge intent, let's say in something like violent conduct or like a reckless force, like you have to like, that's a subjective call, but you have to be sure. You have to be sure that you think the player has used reckless force. And I think in this scenario, I think it's inconclusive, to be honest. And I think there's just as much evidence to say, how many replays have we seen of this incident? Like 100? And I still can't decide to what extent Willian Jose kicks Luiz's knee and to what extent Luiz's knee accidentally collides, or to what extent Luiz kind of knows what he's doing. Like, I think it's all inconclusive. And so in that respect, I think you probably have to give a penalty because the guy's 1-on-1 and he's kind of about to score and the guy's behind him. I'm not sure I'm convinced that he's clever enough in that moment where he's a striker and he's through 1-on-1 going, oh, I think David Luiz's kneecap is behind me, so if I just draw my foot back, I might take it. Like, I don't see that. But at the same time, I genuinely can't decide whether Luiz thinks, well, if I run and I catch him, I don't think he goes, I'm going to catch him. But whether he goes, well, if I run alongside him, I might, or there might be a tangle of legs. Like, I don't know. I think it's inconclusive, and therefore, I think the right decision is penalty, but no red card. But, and I'm sure we'll come on to this, that by the law, it is a red card.
That's interesting, because I was going to ask you, given everything you've just said, can he not send him off, though? I mean, is that... You know what I mean? Why can't he not send him off there? So this is really interesting. So the law has been poorly drafted, right? The double jeopardy law, and it's got this giant loophole in it where basically because Luiz hasn't gone for the ball, it's a red card, which is stupid because he hasn't gone for the ball because he hasn't really made a challenge. It's a collision of legs. But the law is drafted in such a way that it doesn't take that scenario into account. So whoever drafted that law has done a really poor job. And lads, but
isn't that true of almost half of penalties? That
yes.
They haven't truly gone for the ball. right? That leg you dangle out, the kind of the blocking move, all of those, you haven't gone for the ball.
Yeah, but it's not a denial of a goal-scoring opportunity.
Yeah, because he's going through one-on-one. So, and that to me is stupid. Like, to have that law like that, because they changed the double jeopardy law to kind of cut down on the amount of like red card and penalty and suspension, like the triple punishment kind of thing. And I supported that. And when you first see it, it's like, oh, okay, if you just do it deliberately, you're still getting sent off. And I think that's fine. There has to be a deterrent for defenders not to do that, and not to think, well, you know, even if I get caught, they're still getting the same chance. There does have to be a punishment for that. But in this scenario, it's like, well, he hasn't gone for the ball, and it's like, well, yeah, he hasn't gone for the man either. it's just a collision of legs. And like, personally, and this is where it becomes an interesting debate. Personally, I'm a vibes guy when it comes to refereeing, right? I want referees to be able to use their common sense. And again, none of us are stupid. We know when someone has been a bastard and when they haven't. Now, I accept in this scenario, we're kind of saying, well, I'm not sure if Luiz has been like maybe 20% of a bastard, and kind of gone, well, if I collide with him, maybe I do. But for me, a red card, you should be a bastard to get sent off. It should be violent conduct, punching the ball off the line, like bad persistent fouling, which you've been warned about many times, like, you know, or like really cynical deliberate professional foul. Those things should be red card. My knee was slightly in the wrong place. That should not be a red card. It is by the laws, so I don't really blame Craig Pawson. But and then you get this, and it's really unfortunate, I guess, for the FA that there were two very similar incidents on the same night, because Southampton versus Man United happens, and Jan Bednarak, very, very similar.
Yeah,
and I think,
issue. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so initially Mike Dean doesn't send him off, and I think that's because, stand back from the heat of this take, I think it's because Mike Dean applies common sense. Southampton are 6-0 down.
What?
Right? They're 6-0 down, right? And the way he's refereed this, I think, is to go, fucking, they're 6-0 down. They're about to go 7-0 down. I don't need to send the guy off for this. It's just pointless. It's not worth it. But they know, and I'm sure, right, that this happened in the VAR room. I'm sure they were going, fuck, we sent a guy off for this like 3 hours ago, and Arsenal Twitter is watching and going, what are you going to do?
But they've rescinded it! That's the part I don't get, okay. And not ours.
So the explanation for why they rescinded it, that I haven't seen from the FA or anything like that, but Dale Johnson, who's a really good follower on Twitter for these things from ESPN, he predicted before that Bednarak would get overturned and Luiz wouldn't. And the reason he predicted that was he said there was no contact in the Martial incident. Basically, Martial dived, and so it's the VAR who should have picked that up. But I think, whereas with Luiz, there is contact, therefore there's reasonable doubt. And therefore, when there's reasonable doubt, they don't overturn things. Whereas with Martial, there's no contact, he's dived. But I think what poisons this is, personally, and I'm just interpreting this, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, I think that usually they wouldn't send Bednarak off. I think they did it because of the Luiz incident a few hours earlier, and they panicked and went, fuck, we've got to send him off, because otherwise everyone's like,
where's the consistency?
Yeah, exactly. And actually that was the stupid thing to do. And what they should do is just go, right, okay, this incident, yep, people are going to say that, but people are always going to say that. It's not a red card. We don't send him off. So I think there's a bit of a mess here. And the lesson, and this is the lesson to go deeper with you on VAR in general, do not fucking pander to people who think there are conspiracy theories, because you can't make them happy. No. They don't want to be happy. They want to think there is a conspiracy against their clubs. Stop pandering to those people. Stop trying to consider them. They will always just come back to it being a conspiracy. Referee how you think it should be refereed. And personally, and look, I know that not everyone agrees with me on this. I would just love it if we were just able to say, like, look, as a referee, you know when that guy's been a bastard, and you know when he deserves a red card and when he doesn't. And, you know, if people on Twitter go, oh, it's inconsistent, fuck them. Like, they're not coming to your house, fuck them. They're always going to say that. And you brought in VAR largely because of those people. And are they happy? Are they fuck? So learn your lesson. Stop trying to please people who cannot be pleased, and just officiate the games properly. And rewrite that double jeopardy rule and get a lawyer to look at it.
There
ends my sermon.
I am.
Can I come back on something?
Please do.
The denial of goal scoring opportunity. Here's where I have an issue with that. Maybe not half of goals or half of penalties, but 20%, 25%. Like, look at Saka's penalty that he didn't get. That's not a denial of goal scoring opportunity. He's beaten everybody else. There's just one defender, and Saka's through going one-on-one with the keeper if he's not taken down. How is it not the same? It may be not as good a goal scoring opportunity, but he's about to shoot at the keeper if he's any smarts and have a shot on goal. It doesn't matter that the guy's that in the Wolves situation, he's central and coming across the penalty spot. Saka is going one-on-one with the keeper if he's not taken down. How is it not the same?
I mean, I think the Saka one should be a penalty. I don't. It's hard, right?
It should not only be a penalty. It should. My point is, it wasn't going to be a red card, but
so candidly, Paul, you're describing a situation that I'm not looking at right now, so I'm going purely on recollection. I think we all kind of know the difference between a denial of a clear goal-scoring opportunity. Clear goal-scoring opportunity is there's no one between. There's no. I mean, look. Let's be fair. If Luiz makes no contact with that player, it is literally him and the keeper. That is not the situation in the Saka one, because for one thing, the defender who makes the foul,
it is.
No, but Paul, the defender,
there's nobody between Saka.
The defender who makes the foul is between him and the keeper.
Yeah, but same with Luiz.
No, he's behind him.
The only difference is that you can argue in this case that he goes for the ball. Wait, you see my distinction, right? Like in the Luiz case, Luiz is literally behind the player running in on goal. In the Saka case, the defender who commits the foul is between Saka and the keeper. He's not. He's behind Saka, but he's not as far behind Saka.
Am I misremembering this? Clive, just come back in here for a second. Am I misremembering this? Is Saka in on goal?
No, he's not. He's out wide a little bit. He's trying to get the penalty quite rightly. He's trying to get there first.
But why is he not in on goal? He's running towards goal. Well, it's not as good an angle, but so what? That's not in the rules.
The ball's also been pushed out, hasn't it? The ball hasn't gone towards the goal. The ball's been pushed out. So
no.
It's not as clear.
Pépé is wider than him. The ball is towards goal. It's not as good an angle. The main difference in this is that the defender goes for the ball, but there's so many penalty situations in which you're denying a goal scoring opportunity, and they don't get red cards. This is only because Luiz is further behind, because it looks more egregious, but it's the same situation. Hence my view that the ref has interpreted this situation. He hasn't done the letter of the law, except in that lots of other situations, if that's the letter of the law, then those should be red cards and sendings off. I mean, it's just a shitty law. It's not consistent. He's just further behind, and it's more egregious.
On the Saka one, what happened was, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but on the Saka one, the referee thought that the defender, I think it was Bowley, wasn't it? He got a touch, and he gave a corner, right? When VAR looked at it, they probably thought, you know what, it's inconclusive we got a touch or not. We won't go against the referee. Do you see what I mean? So it's all back down to VAR, mate. VAR is the cloud over the game that stops him getting what he'd like. Every game got its own temperature. Every game is different. Every game, one foul doesn't mean exactly the same thing. With VAR, there's guys sitting there with the rule book, and they're the ones that tapped Mike Dean on the shoulder and said, by the way, if you've given a penalty, in that scenario, come and look at it, because we think it's a clear goal-scoring decision opportunity. Now, Once you give them the penalty, we're not going to overturn the penalty, but if you need to think about what you're doing here, and that's what happened. And so VAR is the umbrella, I'm afraid, over the game. It's a protective state that protects each other, and it's now impacting the product that we're watching. And the real debate is around VAR and is around what it's doing to the flow of the game of football. And what it's doing to how many games that we watch that have major turning points, which would never happen with the human eye. And too many games are ending with 10 men. I know we're the Arsenal fans, so we're saying that. And then you ask yourself, in a serious period when we're all going through a pandemic and we watch every single game, I think a lot of people are falling out of love with some of the product that they're actually seeing. And I think VAR's got a lot to do with that. But that's another feature, maybe another podcast, but it definitely underpinned this decision, in my opinion.
The irony is that in our game, not in the other games, but in our game, VAR just confirmed the decision that was made on the pitch, right? So we didn't actually get screwed by VAR in the sense that that the referee is the one who screwed us, and then VAR just let the referee screw us, essentially. Paul, you want to weigh back in on this?
Not really. I just think it's a shitty law, a shitty rule.
I agree with that.
That isn't consistently applied. There are lots of penalties that deny goal-scoring opportunities, and I'm sorry, they do. And the guy is through, but they don't give you a red card because it doesn't look egregious like this one does.
Yeah, no, by the way, I agree with you. I think what's the only reason I push back on that is I think there's a lot of things to take issue with here, and you're picking out the one that's probably the lowest on my list, the highest on my list just being that, like, this is too harsh a punishment.
Yeah, but the reason I bring it up is because there is inconsistencies and referees make decisions all the time. So I think he has a chance to say, fuck it, like it's accidental. I'm not sending him off. Yeah.
No, I get it. Look, go ahead, Tim, please.
Can I just add on this, just like really, really quickly? One thing I absolutely think is that in football at the moment in the Premier League, it is too easy to get a penalty and it's too easy to get a red card.
Totally agree.
And I'm turning a lot of games off. I hate to be one of those killing the game people who then just tunes into the next game and watches it. I'm turning loads of games off this year just because the games are quite boring to watch because it's so easy to get a foul. I'm just watching so much, have the ball in the halfway line, wait for the opponent, stick your ass out, down I go, free kick, like lots of breaking the rhythm up. And just the level of penalty, like penalties and red, is just ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. Like it's gone totally out of whack. And I think it's making a lot of games, like I look at them like a bit comically, a bit quizzically, like I watch WWE now. And to Clive's point, like I haven't really enjoyed the Premier League this season very much at all. And I don't think that's just the pandemic context. I think the game is fundamentally changing and we're having these discussions too much. And personally, maybe I'm just mad, but I like football. I like watching football and I'm just not seeing a lot of football.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting, but if you were willing to radically reshape football, I would shrink the penalty box, because what really drives me crazy is like a guy with his back to goal is 1 foot inside the penalty box and someone touches his ankle and he goes down, and that's a penalty. That's a 70%, 80%. In a game where one goal means so much, to basically give a team a goal for things that happen in situations that aren't a threat to the goal doesn't feel equitable. Look, the reality of this game, though, is that, like, okay, we were dumb. We brought that on ourselves. Leno kicks it too soon. Luiz jumps, contests the ball he doesn't need to. Holdings in no man's land, does a few pirouettes. The ball is perfectly weighted. We get super unlucky. Luiz makes some contact. It's not intentional, but fine, it's a penalty. It's that we go down to 10 men from that. And the idea that the game... I understand that if you want to be mad at anything, more than the refs, more than VAR, be mad with the laws of the game. But that's fine. I mean, it took a half that should have been our best half of football this season, and just a verification of the improvement in our play, a confirmation of this run. And that second half, you know what bothered me? This is going to sound so dumb. From a purely entertainment standpoint, I could not wait to watch another half of that. I could not wait to watch what we would do, especially with Wolves having to push the ball forward a little more. And so maybe let's just finish with the second half super quick, guys, because I don't think there's much to talk about in the second half. I mean, we know Leno got sent off, and that's a boneheaded error. It just is what it is. He made a mistake. He misjudged it. Raining like crazy, wet pitch, greasy pitch. I think he had made a slight error earlier before where he'd palmed it straight out in front of the goal instead of around the post. But he's been excellent, so I'm not going to pick on Leno. But one thing I will say, Paul, is that in terms of how we played, the Southampton game when we were down to 10 men in December or November, whatever it was, I felt we rode our luck. We sat in our penalty area. They outpassed us like 500 to 20, and we just cravenly held on for a point. Now, to be fair, we had a point to hold on to. In this game, we get very unlucky because not only do we go down to 10 men, but Moutinho scores a goal he won't score again in the next 5 seasons to give them the lead.
Wankers. Wolves were doing that every bloody game for a while, and then they gave up a few months ago, and then they fucking take it up in this game.
Yeah, but the point is, I was even encouraged by how we played down to 10 and 9 men. We still played some football. We still tried to cater. I think the Pépé substitution was wrong. I think Smith Rowe could have come off. But all in all, I mean, are you at least encouraged by the way we persisted with the football? I mean, there were some... Look, if you want to nitpick, Aubameyang on the left didn't look particularly fit. I don't know that I understood that one, leaving Smith Rowe on. Again, not totally sure about it. But by and large, I felt that if you contrast how we played with 10 men against Southampton and with this, you see a different team, just even in the way we responded to going down to 10 and 9 men.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. We had confidence in our football. We kept playing them. I didn't think the Aubameyang substitution was helpful. I was fine with Smith Rowe doing his thing. I wouldn't have made that change. I would have kept the guys playing as it was. I know you want to bring on the captain and kind of for him to play and role in this and to be a part of this. But really, I didn't feel that was the helpful substitution because he's not a high-touch player. He's not a guy who holds possession and keeps you away from having to kind of sit back and defend. But we continued to play. We had confidence in our football, and I really liked that aspect of it. And there we were into added time, and we absolutely had a chance or situation where we could get back into this and get a draw. It is a weird thing about football that when you've nothing to lose, you don't actually throw everything at it with 2-3 minutes to go. I mean, Arteta at one stage had to wave the players up the pitch and stuff. And it's like, the hockey pulling the keeper thing. I don't just mean sending the keeper up for like corners and things, but like just the whole team. I mean, like, screw it. Let's stay up the pitch for the last couple of minutes and try and make something happen here. But that's not an Arsenal thing. That's a football thing. When there's a goal, when a goal can get you a result and you're still in it with 2 or 3 minutes to go, I think there's a different kind of thinking in football that wasn't displayed here. I mean, sure, we went up for a ball or two, we pushed, but we didn't do anything dramatic in terms of how we were set up. But hey, you're into 90-something minutes, and we were weirdly strange, still in this with 9 players. And I just hope that we don't let the whole the shit that came from this, as we've seen maybe in the 2008 season where things went bad, that this team has a resilience and a mindset to take the positives out of this. I mean, it's great that the fans are taking the positive out of it, and I hope that vibe passes to the team, that we loved what they did in this game. There were mistakes. There are things we could improve, but like what they're doing now, the football they're playing, thank you. Keep doing it. Do more of it. We'll stick with you. That's what I took out of it. To your point on the second half, we believed in our football. We kept playing. We didn't say, even at nine men, we played football.
Yeah.
So fair fucks to them.
Aubameyang and Saka had shots blocked in the box at the death, to get a point out of this game. And, Clive, I don't know that there's a lot to take away from the way we played in the second half because of the situation, other than that I saw a team that still wanted to play a little bit of the football and did the best we could under the circumstances. But I want to just quickly praise Granit Xhaka for the second half. I mean, he just... Look, I'm not a Xhaka guy. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. But
We get it. We get it already.
But he has really stepped up in his partnership with Partey, and I think some of it is just letting Partey do more of the things that he's better at doing. But in the second half, Xhaka kept tackling, he kept running, he kept passing forward, he played that second half like he was two players and like there was still something to fight for. And I think that really carried through to the squad in general. And I'm not going to say it was some blistering second half that we played. I mean, they had more of the ball as you'd expect, but I was really impressed by him. So if you had to pick out anything from the second half, and there's not much there for the obvious reasons, would his performance be one of them? Because I felt he really showed a lot of leadership in that second half and continuing to play.
Yeah, I was struggling with the second half emotionally, and just because of the missed opportunity, we could see what was happening, and I think maybe the players were a little bit mentally fatigued. To see Klopp was talking about that, and I tend to agree with him. There's so many games at the moment. I think some players just find it very hard to be consistent, but Granit Xhaka's, he has his moments when he's stressed, but he's always available, touch wood of injury, and when he used to have derailment moments, but he's having less of those moments. So he has a level of consistent performance. He may not like it. He may not like the direction it goes. But what's really become apparent that tactically he adjusts really quickly and really smartly. And he's really adjusted to Partey coming on board. And he fills that left side brilliantly and gets us going. And his role's really clear. But he's doing other things as well defensively. But he seems to be within a much more comfortable zone. He just doesn't seem as stressed out. And he looks good, right? So I spend half my life looking at alternatives and upgrades right? in certain positions, and that's one, and centre forward's another. And I watched Basuma last night against Liverpool. And Basuma's really, really good. He's sprinty, he's quick, he can shoot, he can switch play. Not in the same way, but he's not Granit Xhaka. He sits there and he waits for the ball, and he waits for collisions, and he waits for moments to go and get them. And so people are thinking, Granit Xhaka's got a unique football profile. He's annoyed the death out of me for many, many years. But of all those squatters that have been around, he's the one that's stayed around. He stayed around because he gets the game around him. He gets what's required. He may not all be able to do it all the time, and he's been allowed to do too much. It's no coincidence with a partner that's very similar to his Swiss international partner in how he plays. He suddenly looks like the Swiss captain, which he is. And again, it's something that we've said on this podcast, isn't it? And I'm not the only one that said that. Lots of people out there have said it. I looked at some of my 2018 tweets today talking about Zakaria and how it would help Xhaka, and other people have done this too. And again, it annoys me. It takes so long for us to find these partnerships, right? So we've gone the Guendouzi Traore route. Never looked like working to me. Ceballos, okay, in the back three maybe. They can be protected. Since Ramsey in the back three, one in front, there's no one's made him look this good, in my opinion. So, fair play to him. He's managed to stay around a club like Arsenal for I don't know how many appearances, but he's made his career work, and I always respect footballers that can do that.
Yeah, and I mean, given that we don't have the perfect solution for partnering with Partey, I mean, we have Ceballos, who I rate, but he's on loan, and I don't know whether he's been fantastic. We have El Neni, who I don't rate. It's slim pickings. And Xhaka being good with Partey is important, because for right now, there's no other solution. If Brighton want to loan us Basuma, I'd take him. Sadly, that's not going to happen. Tim, last point here. The table was probably a bit of a false table even going into this. The 6th place team, 7th place team, 8th place team, 9th place team, 11th place team, and 12th place team have either 2 or 1 game in hand over us in 10th. Had we gone on to 34 points here, it is entirely possible that when it was all said and done, we'd still be in 10th. You know what I mean? It just would have looked really nice. We would have been ahead of Tottenham. We would have been sitting in 7th, 2 points off 6th place Everton. But with all those teams having 2 games in hand, and again, you'd rather have the 3 points than not. I guess what I'm asking you is, how realistic was a march up the table anyway? And in the light of this happening, what do you feel is realistic now? Because the one thing I would say is, whenever people say, anything can happen, we're playing well now, okay, we need to play at a 2.7 point pace or whatever it is to get to Champions League, but why not? Well, the why not is because, unfortunately, football is cruel, and you can be the better team and lose, like we did to Wolves, and go down to 9 men and then have it cascade and have impacts on future games. So Do you think this changes much? And if so, what do you think is still realistic in terms of the Premier League, especially with the Europa League on the horizon and having to think about balancing that?
Yeah, sure. So I think you're right, like not to obsess too much over the table at the moment because of the different number of games that teams have played. I tend to think that like teams and players think like this to a large extent anyway, but it really is one of those just get as many points as you can and see where you are at the end of the season and not obsess too much over whether you're 10th, 11th or 9th at a particular time. Because, yeah, you can. I think Villa have got 3 games in hand over us at the moment. But I mean, that can change. We could have a COVID outbreak at the end of February and that could all change and Villa could lose all of their games. And so I don't think we can obsess too much over that. As for like balancing the Europa League and all of that, I am not a fan of that at any stage. I don't think it works. I just don't. I just don't think it works when you start. You know, I can maybe understand it in April when you get to a stage where it's like, okay, we're just gonna focus on this and we're gonna forget the league games. I just don't think that works. I think what you need is rhythm at the end of the season because everyone is tired. Everyone is tired at the end of the season. And so the best thing you can have is rhythm. And for me, playing important games often is the best way to get that. Having like a big game, then a dead game, then a big game, I just don't think it works. I just don't think it works like that at all. We are absolutely certainly not at that stage, not by a long, long shot. Do I think that? I think that, finishing 6th, for example, and getting in the Europa League, very absolutely eminently possible. I agree. I think I read something like if we win every game, we get 79 points or something. And obviously we're not going to win every game, but even that's not an enormous total of points, relative to getting in the top 4 or whatever. It might be this year, but we're looking at another fairly meager points haul. But I just think you can't do that, particularly if you're a big club. What you want is your players playing every 3 days and playing like their life depends on it. I think that's the culture you've got to have. And also, I just kind of think, I also think that in terms of finances, when we've just come off the back of the season where there is going to be 0 gate revenue, like 0, even the 2 or 3 games where 2,000 people are allowed in. Arsenal lost money on those games because it costs more money to have the staff, but obviously they did it because they wanted to prove that they could. So they lost money on those games. So the gate revenue is less than 0 this year because no one's going to games before the end of the season. So getting into Europe is very, very important by hook or by crook. And so we can't give up on it. But also, if you're Arsenal, if you're an Arsenal player at the moment, I just think it would look. I would feel fucking rotten if my club and my manager turned around to me and said, "Do you know what? Only 50% of the games are meaningful from now on." Like, I wouldn't want to play like that. Quite frankly, not if I was, not unless I was playing at like a mid-table club where I thought, oh, okay, maybe this is like my leg up to somewhere else. I just don't think you can do that. I think that the culture you've got to get into is we are in high performance mode all the time and we don't just slip in and out of it. I just don't think it works that way. So for me, just balls to balancing it until maybe like late April when it's like, okay, this guy, he's carrying a bit of a calf injury and we might have a final in 3 weeks if things go right. I think that's when you judge those margins. January, February, March, nope, you don't do that.
I think the only place it could, and I mostly agree, Tim, but let's say we had won this game, we're on 34 points, and let's say somehow we beat Villa and Leeds. I say somehow, not like it can't happen. The way we're playing, we could beat anybody right now. I really believe that. I am that encouraged. But, good teams, tough games, some players out, some players suspended. But let's say we did that. Then you go into a situation where it's Benfica on a Thursday, City on a Sunday. Benfica on a Thursday, Leicester away on a Sunday. And if we've won all of those games, including the Wolves game, and you're sitting on 40 points, and you're really, really genuinely looking at like, even 4th being very much a thing. Do you look at the City and Leicester games at the weekend and say, that's the one I'm going to make sure I'm fresh for? I I don't know. I don't know that you can do that because getting knocked out of the Europa League would absolutely take the wind out of your sails too. And I don't know what you do, but Tim, look, I totally get you. Every game is important. When you play Thursday, Sunday, you may have to make some rotational decisions. And which game you choose to use that 1A player. Can Thomas Partey play Thursday, Sunday? I mean, he can. Can Smith Rowe? Again, I mean, I don't know. Clive, am I out of my mind here? I mean,
let's see what happens when we get to it, right?
Yeah.
It's. I think it'll all be obvious when we get there, depending on results. I think we'll all fall into a natural strategy, as will the club, as will the players, as will the coach. It all depends on results and momentum and who's in the red zone, who's not, what draw we get in the Europa League if we get past Benfica. If we get an easy draw, then suddenly, hold on a minute, we're in the semi-finals, wherever it is, right? So, and everything changes. So it'll become really clear where we are now in a January, which is, was it January, February? I'm not sure it is anymore. Early February, sorry.
February, yeah.
Because of the amount of games, we're probably about 3-4 weeks behind where we normally are, so from a date perspective. So, hey, look, it'll all become clear depending on the results and how we play and who's available, etc. Personally, I'm comfortable being outside of Europe next year. I'm comfortable being in it. I think there's opportunity with the strategy and the nature of what we're doing to potentially jump into the Champions League next season. So I don't want nothing in the way. But I totally understand that people think otherwise, and that's fine by me. But if we win the Europa League, that's the perfect scenario for me this season. Win the Europa League, chop a year off of our recovery strategy, back in the Champions League, and we go again.
Yeah, and I mean, look, it is the case in my view that right now, other than maybe Thomas Partey, we have some choices that I don't feel terrible about, as long as Willian doesn't play. Kidding. I meant Runnerson. I'm kidding. He did fine too. But yeah, there are definitely some favorites. That's okay. Look, I'm going to pull the curtain back just really quickly here and make the point that we started the pod by saying we were going to implement this structure. And as we were doing it, I was like, nah, fuck this, it stinks. So we just kind of had a conversation. And, the illusion of structure may have felt like structure, but I assure you there was none. We'll try it again later. It just wasn't working for me, so I apologize for that. Anything else, guys? I think we're good, right? Yep.
Elliot, could I add one quick thing? I'd like to apologize to the nicest man in Arsenal Twitter and the one of the smartest football minds, Clive, for trying to savage him on the whole penalty thing. I'm very upset. I think we're all very upset. Let me tell you how upset I was. Mm-hmm. I only just found out during our podcast that Man United won 9-0 because I swear to God, you guys said, I'm like, hang on a second. And I went, that's how in a ball I have been. The only thing I've been able to do since the game was I did manage to watch the first half and the start of the second half. And it was a bit cathartic. But anyway, I love you, Clive. And we're all in this together. And we turn on each other, but we should be turning on them.
I have to be honest with you. I didn't even realize any of us had turned on one another. That's how used to the internecine aspect of this podcast I am. But go figure. Look, here's what you can do. You can sign up for our Patreon and make our day that way, or you can not do that and still make our day because you listen to this, and we love you either way. So we'll leave it at that. Tim's on Twitter at Snowbirdo. Thanks, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
Clive's on Twitter at ClivePFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
If you need a little cuddle after being savaged by Paul to such a great extent that I wasn't aware it happened, let me know. I can come around. Paul's on Twitter at Pause My Pants. Thanks, Pause. My name is Elliot Smith, the deliverer of the most awkward advertisements in all of podcasting, I like to think. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. I'm excited to watch us play next, guys. Right now, this is one of those moments. It's been a long time where I was like, I wish we could play tomorrow and just go rampage somebody. And Villa just lost to West Ham, so who knows? Maybe that game presents an opportunity to us. We shall see. We love you. We'll talk to you after Arsenal 10. Villanelle.